Hey there, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. Anyone have any personal close calls / creepy encounters? Part 2. I worked in downtown Houston for 911 on the overnight shift. On a break I went out to my car because at 911 sometimes you just gotta get away. Anyway, while sitting in there a homeless guy came and knocked on my window, which wasn't at all unusual. He rolled his fingers like roll down your window. I cannot explain what came over me, but all of my hair stood on end and I was flooded with something I felt fight or flight come over me. I didn't know where it came from, didn't even feel like my voice, but I yelled no. And I was pointing my finger at him. I sat there shaking all over, but his face was seared into my mind. So a few days later on my day off was watching the news and the same damn homeless dude had been arrested that morning because he was the serial killer they had been searching for. There had been a string of strangulation deaths of mostly homeless women downtown. Could not believe when his mugshot popped up on my TV. I just went cold. I'm so grateful though for what I assume was my intuition or guardian angel alerting me to danger. My boyfriend and I live in a college town. A shortcut to get to the downtown / bar scene from our house you have to walk through the high school football field. One night, at about 3 a.m. we are trotting our way through the field and we notice a man over by the actual classrooms. We noted that it was weird that A, he was alone and B, that he had no pet with him as it's normal to see people using the grounds as a place to take their dogs. We continued our conversation but kept an eye on him. As we reached the halfway point of the field, where neither the street lights or the stadium lights hit you anymore, the man started sprinting towards us. We immediately without conversation started sprinting for the parking lot / busy street. We looked back once we reached it and he was already retreating towards the buildings. I just wonder if he was so brazen to run towards a couple what the hell he was doing to all the single females walking those grounds. I was driving with a friend late at night, around 3 a.m., and noticed a car driving close to my rear. I get really nervous when cars tailgate me, so my friend suggested I just pull over and let the car pass. I parked at the nearest available space, but when I did I realized to my horror that the car had parked right behind me. My friend and I froze for a second before she said, "Okay, try pulling out." As I did, the car pulled out behind me. Freaking out, I made a quick right, then turned right a few more times and sped the hell out of there. To this day I've chalked it up as some kids playing a prank on me, but I still don't absolutely know what happened and it always creeps me out. Oh, that reminded me of another one. My cousin thought I was imagining it or embellishing it, but this happened, and the dude was totally following me. I was going over to my cousin's, and I stopped at a grocery store near her apartment on my way there. When I went into the store, I noticed there was a gold BMW parked in the no parking zone along the front of the store. That's why I noticed it, really, because it was just blatantly idling in a no parking zone. The driver's seat was empty, and there was a guy with long blonde hair sitting in the passenger seat. I went in and bought whatever it was, and when I was leaving, I noticed the car was still there. I got into my car and started to leave, and when I drove past the BMW, the blonde guy scooted over into the driver's seat and started driving, following me. I was really close to my cousin's apartment, and I didn't think to drive around circles until I'd already pulled into her apartment complex. Instead of going straight to her building, I drove in a loop around 2 other buildings before circling back to her building, and he followed me. I decided to park and make a run for her apartment, but when I parked, he pulled up behind me, blocking my car in, and just sat in his car and stared at me. I was panicking by this point, realizing I'd kind of trapped myself, but I pulled out my cell phone and called my cousin. As soon as he saw my phone, he drove off. She didn't feel like I was in any danger, but seriously, what was he doing in the grocery store parking lot? If he was legitimately waiting for someone, did he leave them there? Did he steal his friend's car or something? I think the sitting in the passenger seat was so people wouldn't look twice at someone sitting in a car, scoping out a parking lot. I was taking piano lessons with a man when I was 12 years old. But once he put his hand on my knee, I knew something was odd. I asked him why he did it. I was so terrified and frozen. I don't really remember much except him walking back in the room. He had a robe on, and when he was taking it off I ran out the door and into the street. I called my grandparents on my cell phone and asked them to pick me up. I refused to go to any more piano lessons and didn't tell anyone why. I repressed the memory until when I was in high school, my parents saw in the paper that he was charged with molesting multiple children when they asked if anything happened to me. I think he's getting out in the next couple of years, which makes me uneasy. I know it's not dramatic as avoiding murder or anything, but man am I glad I didn't get molested lol. When I was younger, probably about 5 or 6, my mom and I were driving home from a larger city about 4 hours away from ours. It's a long drive, and it starts out with windy, curvy roads. It can be more than a little nerve-wracking to drive. I remember I saw my mom getting tense and I felt scared because I knew she wasn't calm. Her eyes kept flicking to the rear view mirror and back to the road. There was a car following us closely. Way too close on a 75-mile-per-hour road. Whenever we would switch a lane, so would they. When we slowed down, so would they. Basically anything my mom did, they copied. My mom was in full-on panic mode and didn't know what to do, so she went to pull over on an exit after about 20 minutes of the other car following us so recklessly. The car followed, of course. She pulled off on the side of the road and the car parked a little ways behind us. Another car was taking the exit and the car that had been following us drove away quickly and merged back on the freeway. The car that had just exited pulled up and a family was inside. They asked if we were okay. They'd seen the other car following us and knew something wasn't right. I hate to think what would have happened if that other car hadn't pulled off. Whoever that family was, I'm pretty sure they saved my mom and I. A guy who wanted to buy our car. He traveled 6 hours just to see the car, tried to convince us that he needed the car before he could put down a payment and pulled out a small knife and started playing with it. He was being friendly and charming, but we were all really on edge. I excused myself and called my mom to tell her if I didn't call her up again in 30 minutes to call the police. He eventually left without trouble, but I didn't sleep that night. I might have overreacted, but that scared me so much lol. I'm a social worker and one day a client who volunteers around our space comes running and telling me to call the cops. Apparently a van pulled up not too far away from them and someone jumped out and grabbed a girl walking close to them, threw her in, and drove off. They didn't get the plates, so we never did find out what happened. I was selling my former home, and had a for sale sign out front, with the contact information of the realtor in it. One afternoon, a guy knocks on the door, says he's thinking about buying it, but would like a tour. I told him to contact the realtor, as she was scheduling showings. He tried persuading me to just give him a quick tour, but I noped out of it. Fast forward a couple of days, I had a friend over, and his brother was coming by as well for a pay-per-view. So when there was a knock on the door at 9:30, I thought nothing of it. Except it wasn't my friend's brother, it was that guy. He said he still really wanted a tour, and that he also wanted to take me out. At this point, I was living alone with my daughter, and I was really sketched out. Luckily, my friend, concerned when I didn't come right back in, came out and basically acted like my live-in boyfriend, which definitely seemed to deter the guy. I was definitely grateful my friend was there that night. Maybe he was just a lonely, awkward dude, but I still am glad I wasn't alone when he dropped by the second time. My younger brother and I were almost abducted when we were kids, by a criminally insane man who raped and then murdered his own mother, by burning her alive in her own home to hide the evidence. He spent 20 years in a psychiatric institution before being released. This man lived a few blocks away from the home my family lived in at the time. I was 6 at the time and my brother was 4. He and I were playing outside in the front yard one afternoon when this man approached the end of our driveway and tried to lure us both over to him. I stayed away, but my brother, being naive and not really knowing any better, ran over to him. I started panicking because I realized how dangerous this was, but my brother wouldn't listen to me. The man started asking us our names, and asking my brother if he could recite his ABCs. Eventually this man begins to try talking us into walking to his house with him, which I recall was decrepit and hardly inhabitable. In a last-ditch effort to prevent whatever was about to ensue, I had ran to my little brother and latched on tightly to his hand in order to pull him back and away from this man, but the man was trying relentlessly to pull us both away from our home. Being 6 years old, and extra petite for my age, I was losing and I was terrified. By sheer luck my father had walked into the kitchen and happened to glance out of the kitchen window as this was happening, and managed to intervene. He scared the man off and threatened to kill him if he ever saw him anywhere near any of his kids or anyone else's kids ever again. I never saw him in the neighborhood again, needless to say. But my little brother certainly got the stranger danger talk, and we were both kept on a tight leash from that point on. It's insane to think about how differently this could have played out, and it's one of the closest calls I've probably ever had in my life. Total nightmare fuel. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around the world. See you in the next video. Bye.